Well, the Warriors are out in Tamworth and they're training in isolation. They're doing an amazing thing to make sure the NRL gets back up and running, but they've got a bit of an injury crisis at the moment. Just some of the names that have been injured. Adam Kieran apparently went down yesterday. Bunty Afoa, Jazz Tavanga, Leeson Armour, Tane Milne. Gerard Beale's on the way back from an injury. So is Nathaniel Roach. BB, throwing to you, resident Kiwi here and Warriors fan. What's going on and what do we need to do about this?
It's been a massive roller coaster the last couple of weeks, hasn't it? The saviour of the NRL just a couple of weeks ago, Cameron George came out yesterday and said he'd asked to try and figure out sort of a loan deal with other clubs just to try and bring in a couple of front rowers. That's where the Warriors are really light at the moment. It's not like they can just fly guys over as injury replacements. They actually don't have that much front row coverage even lower down the ranks. I'm reluctant to say that the Warriors deserve to be granted an exemption like this, but surely after what they've been willing to sacrifice and give up, and are still going to have to for the next couple of months at least, surely we could work out a deal whether it's a loan or a salary cap exemption, something like this, just to make it a little bit of a level playing field. Otherwise, it's going to be a long restarted season for the Warriors.
Danksy, you were at Cogra Oval, Netstrata Jubilee, and you saw Paul Morawski in Storm colours for the first time, or shaking hands with the Storm people. And we've seen that loan deal with Harry Grant, Paul Morawski, but that took months to get off the ground. Do you think that it should be something that's fast-tracked to help the Warriors?
It certainly should in these kind of fast and loose times. They should make it work, especially for everything that the Warriors have done. Will they? Probably. I think because they still need to ensure the integrity of the NRL products. Like if the Warriors have 0 players to actually pack in, what else are they going to do? And then there's a few guys with no Canterbury Cup this year. There's heaps of resis going around who need work. So why not? I'm all for it.
And what about you, Liam? Are there any names that you've thought of that could be potential suitors for the Warriors?
Well, as we saw with someone like Harry Grant and Paul Morawski, they're probably just outside the best 17 of their respective clubs before that loan deal. And we saw them switch. So potentially the Warriors have got, I think on their list, I was just looking then, they've got 4 or 5 hookers. They could possibly switch or loan just for one season one of their 3rd or 4th string hookers to a club that maybe doesn't have that backup option, and then they could in turn possibly loan them across a front row or a second row, which is what they're lacking at the moment. Some other names that I was looking at from stronger clubs like the Roosters, possibly Canberra, guys like Lindsay Collins and Sitili Tupanua. Obviously, it hurts the depth a little bit if they're not at the Roosters, but there's also no Origin this year, so you don't have to worry about replacing players through the Origin period. So potentially to get them a bit more NRL experience, they could potentially loan him out to the Warriors for the year.
BB, we've seen Sam Thaiday. He's put his hand up, and I know you've got some other former players that you've thought of that you'd love to see back at Warriors colours. I'm not sure if other Warriors fans maybe agree, but what do you think about this idea of other sort of players just inside the top 30 coming to the Warriors? Would you still welcome them?
Yeah, I think other players within the top 30 at other clubs, I think that's where the NRL is coming from, that maybe it's a little tricky. So maybe more likely is a former player or a guy, purely playing Canterbury Cup who's a little bit more experienced could come in. Would take Sam Thaiday in a second, 100%. I'd love to see him in Warriors colours. Bring back Blake Ashford. I'm a massive Blake Ashford fan. I tweet about him all the time. Bring back Blake Ashford. He can cover any position. One of the Warriors greats, like a cult figure. But yeah, I think you might get more success bringing in an older player rather than someone within the top 30 of another team. Greg Eastwood is another one. He's still going around playing. I can't remember where I saw him play. I chatted to him about 2-3 months ago. That's right. Yeah. So he's still going around. He's sort of mentoring a couple of the the younger players coming through the ranks there. So there are options. I think there are options that if the loan thing doesn't work out, we can sort something out.
I saw Jeremy Lattimore run past me yesterday. He looked fit.
Go.
Another Warriors great.
Yeah.
Why not?
Bring him back.
I think we mentioned a few names earlier. There's a lot of former Warriors that seem to be sitting just outside a few clubs' best 17s. Jason Bakuya was one mentioned earlier as well. He's sort of just outside the Sharks core group at the moment, and he's someone who could add to that back row depth there, considering how many are out. But in terms of front rowers, there's not a lot that seems to be on the market. So, BB, what do you hope this year will look like as a Warriors fan? Like, putting on purely your Warriors cap, while you're glad they're in the park, are you worried about how this year's going to go?
I think, look, if I'm being completely realistic, like I think the bar is pretty low this year. Just the fact that we've been, the side has been able to come over, the sacrifices they've made. Look, honestly, I don't think there's many Warriors fans who are legitimately thinking we can go and win the premiership, even though that would be the greatest story in rugby league history. There'd be a fairy tale you couldn't write. So I just hope we're able to, at this point, with the injuries we've picked up and what it's looking like just over a week out from the start of the season, I just hope we can put a side on the park and put in a few respectable performances.